Joining me now is Louisiana Congressman and House Majority Whip Steve Scalise. Congressman, thanks for being here today.
Good to be with you, Jim.
So we just saw you in Jim's report there showing off that famous Make America Great Again hat. You heard Speaker Ryan say earlier that the House conference is on, in his words, the same page as President-elect Trump. So I want to run through some of Donald Trump's signature positions during the campaign and see if GOP supports him in those positions. Let me start with the Muslim ban. Do you and the GOP conference support that as a matter of policy?
Yeah, what Donald Trump has said, especially about the Syrian ban, is to put a freeze in place until you can properly vet who's coming into the country.
It was not the
Even
Syria,
the FBI said,
he did not say a Syria ban, he said a Muslim ban.
Well, what he's talked about is making sure we can vet people who can come into this country to ensure they're not terrorists. And when ISIS is saying they're going to try to infiltrate and bring people into the United States that are terrorists, we ought to take that seriously. We ought to make sure that people coming here ought to be vetted and that we secure this federal border. And that's one of the things Donald Trump is talking about.
Does the GOP conference,
we need to secure the border.
Every Muslim coming here has to be subject to the extreme vetting that Donald Trump spoke about during the campaign?
It's not a religious test, it's a security test, and that's what we've been pushing for a long time, to have a secured border. I think people all across the country want us to secure the border and make sure that terrorists aren't coming into our country. So there's a lot that can be done quickly to ensure that, but look, under President Obama, he hasn't been focused on the kind of things that make us secure here at home, and we want to reverse that.
Representative Scalise, during the campaign, a lot of pressure from the GOP for Hillary Clinton, if she were elected president, to cut all ties to her not-for-profit organization. Of course, Donald Trump has many businesses. There was talk of a blind trust, so it would be put in the control of his children. But ethics lawyers tell us that would not actually be a blind trust. Is the GOP conference going to push the president to sever ties with his businesses while he is serving in office?
Well, obviously, as part of the transition, that's one of the things that Donald Trump's got to deal with, and he has been. You know, he's talked about turning the company over to his children, and that he's going to have to detach himself from it. And frankly, even if you saw him on 60 Minutes, he said, you know, the company is not important to him right now. Saving this country is.
Yeah,
and I think that's why people were so attracted to his campaign.
Understandable conflicts of interest if you are leading the country and you have many businesses based in the country.
Look,
I just asking you, does the GOP conference want him to cut those ties?
That's why you have a lot of good lawyers to figure all that out. That's one of the things that he'll be doing in the transition, is making sure that by the time he becomes president, it's all worked out. The good news is he's got a few more weeks to do it, as we're also preparing for that first 100 days and the things we need to do to get this economy moving again and get this country back on track.
Representative Scalise, I want to thank you for taking the time.